приветствовать всех.
Good afternoon. I am glad to welcome you all to our today's event. My name is Dmitry Gorchakov. I am a nuclear expert of International Environmental Organization Bellona, and today we present our new report called Elimination of Russia's Nuclear Legacy, Problems and Prospects in the Context of the Military Conflict of 2022-2025. The author of this report, Alexander Nikitin, is sitting near me. Hello, Mr. Nikitin. Good afternoon. Before we move to the presentation itself, I would like to remind you of several technical aspects. This event will be recorded, and this video will be available on our YouTube channel. If someone doesn't want to be seen during this video recording, please take the necessary measures, switch off your camera, then your picture won't be seen there. Second technical aspect is that this event will be held in two languages, English and Russian, with simultaneous interpreting. So please make sure that you have chosen the correct language by clicking the globe sign.
Если у вас возникнут какие-то сложности, пожалуйста, напишите это в чате, и мои коллеги постараются вам помочь. Наше мероприятие продлится ровно 1 час. После презентации Александра Константиновича у всех желающих будет возможность задать вопрос.
Our event will last for 1 hour. So after Mr. Nikitin has finished his presentation, you'll have a chance to ask questions in Russian, English, Ukrainian, if you wish, and you can ask them orally or in written form. Now I pass the mic to Mr. Nikitin. Yeah, thank you, Dmitry. I would like to welcome everyone, and we are very thankful for your interest to our work. As you maybe know, Bellona already deals with the questions of nuclear legacy for over 30 years. Next year, Bellona is going to celebrate its 40th anniversary, and actually almost from the very foundation year, Bellona is dealing with the questions of nuclear legacy. Today I am going to present a short review of our report dedicated to the elimination of the nuclear legacy of the former Soviet Union. In the current report, we have concentrated on the last years of the ongoing Russian-Ukrainian war. And I must say from the very beginning that the topic of the Soviet nuclear legacy is not a simple one. It has to do not only with Russia, but also with the former Soviet republics. However, today we are going to speak mostly on the situation in Russia. As I already mentioned, we deal with these questions already for many years. So today the key question for us is what has happened and what has not happened in the aspect of elimination of Russia's nuclear legacy. All the numbers, facts, and data are available in the report itself. And in the future, we also plan to create a report dedicated to the situation in the former Soviet republics as well. We followed a very simple aim while working on this report. We wanted to remind the experts in the field of nuclear legacy that the problem with the Russian nuclear legacy has not been solved. And in the last 3.5 years, we haven't seen any real steps towards elimination of the former Soviet nuclear legacy. In my presentation, I'm going to touch upon several complicated questions which still are highly important for the experts. The experts and shareholders are not sure what exactly they should consider as nuclear legacy from today's perspective. And also the huge question is what has to be really done to be able to eliminate it. Here on this slide you see the definition which has been formulated by Rosatom, and that is also the definition which Rosatom still follows. So nuclear legacy covers all the facilities created in the interest of the state within the framework of the so-called Soviet atomic project, which have not yet been eliminated. Here you also see a list of key questions which still remain open. The most popular question is what shall be considered as objects of the nuclear legacy. The Soviet atomic project is a pretty broad definition, and sometimes it's complicated to say whether some objects are a legacy of the Soviet atomic project or not. Second question is how the management of this elimination process should be organized. This question also remains open, and that's why we also cannot speak about concrete results. Third question being who owns the nuclear legacy, which currently is in the borders of Russia. For example, Rosatom is arguing about the nuclear legacy on the territories where the peaceful nuclear explosions have taken place. Also, who is responsible for the objects which do not belong to the state but to private enterprises today? The fourth question from the list you see in the slide is who should pay for the elimination of nuclear legacy located on international territory or in international waters. I'm going to speak in more details on that soon. You know that there are a lot of objects in international waters, and the question is whether several states have to cover the costs or maybe some international organizations and funds. And last but not least, question number 5 from the list is about criteria which needs to be determined for elimination of the Soviet nuclear legacy. The question is also what should be considered as the final result in this respect. Here you see a slide representing the data from a foundation dealing with the Soviet nuclear legacy. And you see that the summary data goes back to 2019. Why is it like that? The reason is that after the start of the Russian-Ukrainian war, it became much more difficult to get detailed, fact-checked information. And we have to work with the information we are sure of. So in this respect, we use the summary data of 2019, which has been used at the official Rosatom event by that time. There are three important points here. First, the spent nuclear fuel. Second category being radioactive waste, still present on the territories of the former Soviet Union, and nuclear and radiation hazardous facilities. These are basically the three monsters, if you wish, which we are focused on. You see red numbers in brackets. For example, 18,000 tons of spent nuclear fuel, and in brackets you see the number 20. The reason for that is that the representatives of Rosatom constantly change the numbers, and it's extremely hard to tell how much spent nuclear fuel is there in 1,000 tons de facto. We have chosen the number of 18,000 tons as the minimal number, but our estimation is that we actually are speaking of 20,000 tons. I don't want just to read out loud the numbers from this slide. You see the numbers with your own eyes, and basically here we speak of the legacy after the Soviet Union ceased to exist. How much money do you need to keep this legacy safe and to serve it, if you wish? The numbers answering these questions are also not 100% final and exact. It's highly complicated to give estimates for such costs because the prices are constantly changing. The demand is also changing. Also, it's important to keep in mind that a huge amount of costs is connected with the nuclear power plants. You know that around 35 power blocks working today should stop being used by 2040. And alone for this purpose, one might need around 2.65 trillion rubles. But you can find all the detailed data in our report. As I mentioned, what you currently see on the screen is only a short version of it. For me, it's unimaginable. What does it mean, 2.65 trillion rubles? It sounds like a lot, but I cannot imagine this sum. The main question for Rosatom is where to find the money for decommissioning. At the moment, Rosatom does not have enough money for that. After the Soviet Union has ceased to exist, a special fund has been established, and this fund is collecting money for decommissioning of nuclear power plants. However, currently the money in this fund is still not enough to be able to cover all the needs. The last of the 35 nuclear power plants should be decommissioned by 2093. and this whole sum we are speaking about actually is thought to cover all the period of from today till 2093. On this next slide, you see the indicators of the implementation of the federal program for nuclear and radiation safety 2. This program is existing today, and according to the plan, this program should have ended by 2030. Today, we already know that this second federal program has been prolonged till 2035. Before this second federal program, there was the first one. The first program existed for 17 years, and the whole idea behind these two federal programs was to reduce the amount of nuclear legacy left after the Soviet Union. I do not want, again, to go too deep into the detail and to read out the numbers in this table. That would last too long. You, again, can have a look at this table and at this data in the text of our report. However, there is one question I would like to touch upon in this respect. We already have published our report, and some questions came up. One of them was how many percent of the nuclear legacy has been eliminated by now from the 100% according to our estimates. When I speak of our estimates, I basically speak of the estimates by Rosatom, because we use Rosatom's data for our reports. For example, if we take the construction of the radioactive waste disposal sites, our estimates say that only 8% of the planned sites have been really constructed by today. If we take removal of spent nuclear fuel for storage, I'm sorry, the third line, the reprocessing of spent nuclear fuel, we already mentioned that around 20,000 tons has been left as legacy, and only 5% of that has been reprocessed. If we take the decommissioning of nuclear and radiation facilities, represented in units here, our estimates speak of only 1% of all the facilities being decommissioned by now. And the last topic I want to speak about on this side is transfer of radioactive waste for disposal. Around 5% of the wastes considered to be nuclear legacy has been really given over to the federal operators who actually should deal with radioactive waste disposal. It was always highly important for Bellona to deal with the topic of nuclear legacy in the Arctic. On this slide, you can see the four main objects. It's the Andreev Bay, the Bay of Saida. There you have the... Then you have the object called Grimicha, the third one. And you have the sunken radioactive objects, which lay in Russian and international waters. Let's start with the Andreeva bay. Again, I won't read out loud the whole text from the slide. I only would like to mention that the plan was expanding till the end of 2028, and by that time the all spent nuclear fuel should have been transported away from this bay. Right now there are around 9,000 spent fuel assemblies remaining in Andreevo Bay, and between 2022 and 2025 several assemblies have been transported away. However, the tempo was much lower than before the outbreak of the war. We think that the reason for that is simple. The international donors stopped financing such projects. As for sunken radioactive nuclear objects, I would like to pay your attention to two objects. These are two submarines, K-27 and K-159. These two submarines have nuclear fuel in their reactors. As the information came out that in 2026-2027 the Russian Federation decided to spend money out of the budget in these 2 years, everyone got really excited. But at the moment we do not possess information on the money necessary for these two operations really being available. We do not know how much money is needed for that, and we do not know what exactly should be done to make these projects come true and get the necessary finances. Here you see a small table with objects for submersion, and these objects still are in the Arctic Sea. Before the war, European, Norwegian, and other financial institutes were very actively in this field. However, with the outbreak of the war, these projects were put on hold. On this slide, you see information on the Saida Bay. Saida Bay has been constructed with the help of Germany. According to our estimates and reports present on our website, Germany has spent around 900 million euro to build this object. At the moment, we speak about 139 reactor compartments and block packages there, and Saida has capacity to receive all reactor compartments and block packages of surface ships operating worldwide today. Between 2021 and 2024, 7 nuclear submarines were decommissioned in this object, and 82 nuclear submarines have been decommissioned on Saida Bay in from the Far East. And on now coming to the topic of Grimiha, here we deal with the removal of accumulated spent nuclear fuel. The French government has helped with constructing this object. They wait for the nuclear submarine K-27 I have mentioned before. If the submarine really will be brought up from the sea, Grimicha is going to be the only object where it will be possible to work with this submarine. And the last topic of my presentation is icebreakers. That is actually also kind of nuclear legacy. There are some old nuclear icebreakers starting from Lenin, which has been decommissioned and is currently used as a museum. But there are also other nuclear icebreakers already being decommissioned, and they also, with time, will become part of the nuclear legacy. Well, that's actually, in short, all I wanted to tell you today. In conclusion, I would like to tell you that the nuclear legacy still will last for a long, long time in Russia, because the whole elimination process is going very slowly. You remember the numbers: 1%, 2%, 5% out of 100 which need to be eliminated. It's a very slow process. There is a constant lack of money. At the moment, the focus is away from the nuclear legacy, and the money is needed elsewhere. You know where exactly? We do not see that additional sums are found for these purposes in the Russian budget, and we doubt that international funds are going to jump in and return to these projects actively. In the 90s, there was a huge focus on the nuclear legacy of the Soviet Union. However, this intensity has disappeared. Greenpeace, Bellona, and other organizations which observed the processes have left Russia. Some funds have ceased to exist out of different reasons. Some organizations do not exist anymore. Some organizations leave the country. So basically, the society doesn't have a chance to observe the situation and to push Rosatom towards dealing with the nuclear legacy. So my estimate is that the nuclear legacy in Russia will stay there for years and maybe forever, depending on how you determine the word nuclear legacy. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Mr. Nikitin. Now we have time for Q&A. I see that we have around 20 participants in Zoom, and I remind you that you can write your questions, but if you want, you also can raise your hand in the Zoom interface and ask your questions in persons. However, we also had several questions which we received before the presentation has started. I will start with these questions then. How does Russia plan to manage the territories and objects of the nuclear legacy in the long-term perspective after the stabilization of the situation? I would formulate it in a different way. How long will this process last, and what could be the final aim of eliminating the nuclear legacy? Well, yeah, that's a good question. Stabilization of objects, as it has been called in the question, might mean decommissioning, but decommissioning is not all. Decommissioning is only the first step. After that, you have to remove the whole hazardous nuclear waste and materials, and after that you should decide on what to do with the territory of the former nuclear object. it should be transformed into the brown field or green field. It all depends on money at the end. Who and how is going to manage this process is also a very good question. Right now, we can see the current management process of nuclear legacy elimination, and sometimes it is not very clear what is actually being done and who is responsible for what. So at the end, it all depends on how the management process will be built. Maybe they managed to find a way to solve this problem, but I fear that the whole situation will stay as it is right now, so it's not 100% clear how it's being managed. Okay, thank you. We also have a fresh question which has been asked straight away. What about management of nuclear waste of overseas projects belonging to Russia? I have the feeling that the author of this question might mean also the Turkish nuclear objects, but that's not the only nuclear object by Rosatom in other countries managed by Russia. That is a very good question. I will start with Turkey. Russia has built nuclear power plants in Turkey, and that means that all the spent fuel amounts will be sent back to Russia at the end. However, we have never seen the agreements which have been signed between the states, and I cannot tell for sure that it's how it's going to work. There are also other nuclear objects being built in other countries but Turkey, and the situation every time depends on the agreement which Russia signs with the corresponding country. In the agreement, you usually have information on who deals with the spent fuel and radioactive waste, where it should be transported, etc., etc. All such agreements are closed. You cannot just read them, so it's hard to say how it's going to work. If we speak about former objects and of Soviet legacy, it's a different topic. Okay, thank you. I would like to add some words about the Turkish nuclear power plant. If I'm not mistaken, Russia is also responsible for bringing the spent nuclear fuel back to Russia, and what happens afterwards is a question of the internal Russian strategy of dealing with such wastes. And of course, Rosatom also tries to leverage the option that spent fuel will be brought back to Belarus, for example, for dealing with it. We also have a question on the nuclear waste disposal sites, because there are some sites dedicated for that purpose. Are there enough of such facilities in Russia? Although we already have heard that there are only 8% of such sites built by now, but what is your estimate? Are the new ones going to be built? Well, if we come back to one of the slides I have shown, construction of radioactive waste disposal sites was on place 1. They are meant for radioactive waste of the second and third categories, and if we speak about disposal site for nuclear waste of the first category, there is only one object being constructed in Krasnoyarsk. This site is also meant to be a research facility. It's going to be a deep underground object, and we don't know whether they also offer possibility to dispose the nuclear waste of the second and third category. Again, when we speak of these categories of the second and third category, we speak about the so-called RWDF, radioactive waste disposal facility. There are only 8% of facilities built right now. How it's going to evolve is very hard to predict. In the report, you also will find a map showing where the main nuclear wastes come up, and basically we speak about the European part of the continent, but there are no radioactive waste disposal sites being built in Europe. So this question is a very interesting one. It will become more and more urgent with the years. Okay, another question we have received: is there any official definition of what is called nuclear legacy? And is there definition? Do they try to distinguish between the military and peaceful nuclear legacy? That is a very good question. Thank you. Bellona has been dealing with it thoroughly, and we have sent also an expert commission to Rosatom. And I think that we asked this question every single month for years. Right now, you still have a lot of discussions on what the Soviet nuclear legacy should be considered. How you can distinguish between the peaceful nuclear waste and military nuclear legacy. We have nuclear submarines. We have spent fuels from the nuclear submarine reactors. All that counts as the Soviet nuclear legacy. But there are other questions connected to the weapons, and information on the weapons is closed. Of course, there are also some parts of it which can be called Soviet nuclear legacy. But if we take nuclear ballistic missiles and objects, for example, in Kazakhstan, we have recently met the ambassador of Kazakhstan here in Lithuania, and we asked the question, what is the future of the facility for testing nuclear ballistic missiles? Kazakhstan has shared with us information the country was able to share, but still some questions are still open. And of course, the process of elimination of this nuclear legacy is now in the hands of the new states built or which came up after the Soviet Union has ceased to exist. There was also a question about the damage due to the nuclear legacy in the former Soviet republics, but Russia is actually not dealing with these questions, and it's actually a headache of countries like Kazakhstan, Estonia, Lithuania, and actually Ukraine. Because there was, for example, also a chemical factory dealing with nuclear technologies in Ukraine, and it's also one of the objects of the nuclear legacy. But right now, these countries have to deal with this legacy. Okay, I will ask another question from the chat connected with this headache. Is there any international cooperation on radioactive waste management and final disposal in Russia, or has it been suspended because of the war? Under international cooperation, the author means cooperation with IAEA, NEA, OECD, etc. Well, after the outbreak of the war, the whole international cooperation has stopped. Before the war, this international cooperation was very intensive, and I think that Bellona has worked on finding international budgets and funds for the nuclear legacy elimination for over 20 years. But after the outbreak of the Russian-Ukrainian war, this whole process has been stopped. Right now, Russia is alone with this problem and dealing with it also alone. And as I mentioned in my presentation, I do not think that the international community will work on these topics together with Russia in the upcoming 10 years. It's not likely that they are going to work on eliminating the nuclear legacy so quick, even if the war stops. Yeah, you have rather answered this question from the perspective of the international funding and help in these questions. But international organizations as IAEA still keep on working and collaborate with Russia on different topics, right? Well, I have worked a lot on the questions of the nuclear legacy. However, I do not remember that IAEA has a strong focus on this topic. IAEA is a pretty interesting structure. Of course, IAEA has one of the key topics of the nuclear materials not being spread. Here we speak about low radioactive wastes. IAEA basically is responsible for controlling this process of not spreading, but eliminating the nuclear legacy is not in the key focus of IAEA. They do not have the objective of eliminating the nuclear legacy. They have different tasks to deal with. Okay, now coming back to the topic of nuclear legacy in the former Soviet republics. What can you tell us about the nuclear wastes in Chernobyl and the surroundings? That's a very good question. I currently work very closely with the Ukrainian colleagues, and we started the discussions on presenting a new report on this topic, dealing with the Ukrainian side of the problem. So Chernobyl and nuclear power plant and other nuclear power plants with radioactive waste, as well as the chemical facility I have mentioned. After this report is finished, we also will present it in a way I present the current report. Then I will be able to share more details with you on this subject. Okay, thank you. From my side, I can add that the sarcophagus and the container in Chernobyl is also an example of international collaboration in the field of dealing with nuclear legacy. The international community is dealing with this problem. Also, European money is actively involved in these projects. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, the European funding is also there in Chernobyl. And after the damage to Chernobyl facility a couple of years ago, the Europeans have paid a lot of attention to this topic, and the international community pays attention to it. That's a lucky fact. We see a lot of questions in our chat. I would like just to warn you that we have only 15 minutes left. However, keep on asking questions, because even after our time runs out, we will take our time and give you a written answer in 1 to 2 weeks. I also have another question to the Akuyu nuclear power plant in Turkey. According to the Russian constitution, Russia refuses to store nuclear waste produced in the third world countries. The question is, do you think that this regulation might be applied to Turkey? And the second question, do you think that final waste will be sent back to Turkey after plutonium, etc., has been taken out of spent fuels? If yes, do you have forecasts that Turkey will need to establish a repository for such wastes? Maybe let's start from the beginning, and could you comment on the situation on Turkey and international operations of storing and bringing nuclear waste from one country to the others? Actually, I didn't really realize what kind of the articles of the Russian constitution the author is talking about. Well, in my opinion, we do have a rule which prohibits from bringing nuclear waste to Russia. Okay, well, I'm not sure that I understand correctly what kind of article of constitution is meant by this question, but I'll put it that way. Russia has a very strict and clear position in this respect. Russia tells that's our spent fuel. We have leased it as a fresh nuclear fuel. Now we take it back as a spent fuel. Out of Russian perspective, fuel is not considered to be waste. It's considered to be as a resource which Rosatom plans to use in the future. So the spent nuclear fuel is not considered as a waste, it's considered as a resource in Russia. So it is possible to get additional energy out of this resource, and that's why Russia wants to have the spent fuel from international projects back. As for nuclear wastes and radioactive hazardous wastes with low level of radiation, most likely there will be a corresponding agreement between Russia and Turkey. Might be that Turkey pays something for these wastes, and that's also part of the closed agreement, so this information is not available to the public. It is also possible that Russia will build the radioactive waste disposal site close to the new nuclear power plant, which is being built at the moment. then there will be a direct connection between these two objects. But I don't know. That's a rather political question rather than an environmental one. Yeah, of course, a lot of things depend on politics. I have read the question again, and I see that plutonium is also part of the question. If I understand Rosatom strategy correctly, they propose to remove plutonium, which can be reused out of the waste, and then return to the third country the wastes which are less hazardous and which need less caution for disposal. Russia doesn't want to take back the wastes. They want to take the so-called resources, as you have mentioned, and after they have taken out of these resources what was possible, they try to get the wastes themselves, for example, to Belarus. But again, it highly depends on the agreements between certain countries. Yeah, on this question I also can comment that in France we have similar processes with plutonium, and we know that part of the wastes are being returned to the countries of origin of this spent fuel. That's a pretty usual international practice. Russia most likely will also act in a similar way. And if someone tries to say that it's not the proper way, Russia will, as usual, nod towards France or Great Britain and tell, well, why they do it, we can do it as well. Okay, the following question: how is the radiation situation around the Dwell facility in Moscow? Could you comment on that? Well, I do not want to comment on that. There is Andrei Swarovski, maybe you know him as an expert. He is the expert dealing with the situation in the Moscow region and in the city. He is interested in that. Ask the question to him. I'm not really interested in what's going on in Moscow. Okay, then the next question. How has the situation with the nuclear legacy changed in the regions on the border with Ukraine, if at all? Well, basically, we speak about nuclear power plants here. In our report, you also can find this information. If I'm not mistaken, there are a lot of 180,000 tons of radioactive waste on all nuclear power plants taken together in this region on the border with the Ukraine. Most of the power plants are in the European part of the Russian Federation, for example, the one in Kursk and in Rostov. These particular two are very close to the front line, but there is also the nuclear power plant in Zaporizhia. You have definitely heard of this nuclear power plant, and it is directly on the front line. This whole, all these power plants are actually part of the Soviet nuclear legacy. And if any danger comes up in this region, it will be danger for a lot of people in the region. There are also a couple of questions on the military programs, and it will be the last question. Are there any proofs for the new ballistic missile being tested? Yeah, maybe Dmitry, you are the person to answer it. Well, we did hear information from Putin about Burevestnik, but there are also data available from a Norwegian source stating that Burevestnik really has been tested. That is the information I have. Well, and definitely in our Hangulsk region, there was also a missile test, the test launch. Yeah, right, right. And the very last question about the nuclear arms. How good is Russia in holding its nuclear missiles in a working state and in a safe state? Well, I would put it that way. Russia is currently highly focused on the state of its nuclear arms. That's why Russia won't let any catastrophes happen due to the nuclear missiles. That's a highly important topic for President Putin in person and for Rosatom and for Ministry of Defense, which is responsible for the nuclear missiles. For them, it's highly important that nothing happens in this field, so they are paying a lot of attention to this topic. As for environmental problems due to incidents in the field of nuclear arms, I really do not remember such cases happening. Maybe something did happen, but the information on that was closed. At least I do not remember that all the media would spread information on any environmental problems due to this field. I think they're all right, doing all right in this field. Okay, I know that our time is running out, and I see that a lot of questions are actually going in the same direction. One more question, which is a different one. Russia has decided to unsign different international agreements. How do you estimate the perspective of successful collaboration between Russia and international organizations in the future? Well, in my opinion, it is a problem. Collaboration with Russia from the side of international organizations is not an easy question. Everything should be finished somehow, and some time must pass after that. The war is lasting for almost 4 years, and it will be very complicated to collaborate and work together with international organizations after the war has ended. Of course, it depends on the international organization itself. Some organizations deal with environmental questions, some with human rights. Such organizations, well, are at the moment a danger in Russia, exactly like Bellona is. Okay, yeah, thank you very much for this estimate of yours. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you all for questions you have asked. We will keep on working more